All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Chill Code on Wednesdays. My name is Taggart. Tonight we are going to do some automation in Python. I've, done a little bit of F Sharp and some other weird stuff on this stream on Wednesdays, but I felt like coming home to Python and doing some basic automation. So the plan for tonight is to do some automation of the ZA proxy or Z attack proxy from OWASP. It's a tool that I use all the time for scanning web applications, but it is pretty hands-on, and there are some things, some boilerplate things that we can do to automate it because Zap has a really well documented API, and Python has a great implementation of that API. So I thought what we'd do is we'd start a new Python project kind of from the ground up, and we're going to use all the new hotness that you can use in Python projects to help manage some of the insanity that is Python, especially for dependency management, things like that. So without further ado, let's get started. Oh, that Python automation Chiron is so big. Got to make that text a little bit smaller. That's better. Move that guy over just a bit. Alrighty. Now, I'm starting here on this page because the first thing that I want to solve in terms of problems that I have with Python development is dependency management. If you've ever worked with Python, you know that the dependencies can be kind of all over the place. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use the Poetry kind of wrapper and dependency manager to make that a little bit easier. If you've ever used Yarn or NPM in JavaScript, Poetry does something very similar in that it will kind of resolve dependencies for you. It will also create your virtual environment for you, so you don't have to worry about any of that. Yes, no scary C++ or Java, both languages that I don't love. Although if you had joined us last week, there would have been F sharp, so hopefully you found a soft landing here. But yeah, so Python dependency management is kind of a pain, and so Poetry aims to make that a little bit easier. Once you add Poetry, basically you will just add dependencies this way. It has a lock file and a TOML file that it uses for its dependency management. It will also handle the bundling of your application up to PyPy if you want to publish it. So pretty cool altogether, right? And it'll also build the wheels for you if you need to create a wheel for dependencies. I'm really a big fan. I've just started using it. I don't know all the ins and outs yet, but I do really enjoy the way that it works. So we're going to use Poetry, and I also have the kind of the bones of my Git repository ready to go, and I will make sure that this link is available. We'll throw it in the chat now, but this is open source, so if anybody wants to fork it and play as well, feel free. So let's go. Let's start here in the command line where we're going to, I've just started this, and I'm going to just start with Poetry init to kick off the project. I have the Git repository downloaded. There's nothing in it, so I'm just going to do Poetry init. And then it does kind of a wizard that walks you through. So Zap automation is totally fine for the package name, version 0.10. Yeah, I should be more specific with my semantic versioning, but 0.10 is fine. Description, automation framework for OWASP ZA proxy. Okay, and license MIT, compatible Python versions north of 3.8. Okay, would I like to define my main dependencies interactively? Let's go with no, because I want to do it myself. I don't want to define my development dependencies interactively. So there's the TOML file, kind of all set. Do I confirm generation? YES, and there I go. So if I ls, you'll see that I now have a pyproject.toml, right, and a license and a README that came down from GitHub. And the reason why everything's green is because of Windows, basically. I'm using WSL for my own sanity. I don't like developing on Windows, but it's I want to stay as close to the metal as I can, so I don't want to be in a VM, really. Anyway, so here we are. And to add dependencies, we just do poetry add. And what do we need to add? Well, the only dependency, the like top level dependency that we need for this project is the Python OWASP ZAP v2.4 library or module, because that's going to be our API integration with ZAP. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. So you can see it's creating a virtual env, right, just for the purpose of getting this going. And then you can see that it's been installed. Now, by ls here, you can see that there's nothing here, except if I cat out my pyproject.toml, you'll see that ZAP is now added to it. And if I want to have access to it, so if I run Python 3 right now, and I try import like ZAP v2, which is the name of the library, yeah, it'll fail because it's not there. But if I run poetry shell, which initializes the virtual environment, yeah, it's in there. So the shell gets a little bit funky when I do this. If I run, yeah, if I do fish, will this look better? Yeah, there we go. You can see that now I'm in the virtual environment from here. And if I try this again, if I run Python 3 now, and I do import ZAP v2, I get it, right? So it's handling my dependencies for me. It's bottling it up, so it's a lot easier to work with. I'm a huge fan. And even stuff that I haven't installed straight away, I have access to. So for example, I still have my interactive Python. So if I want to work with that, and I definitely will, I can do that. Does this have a homepage? Let's go and get the ZAP documentation. We'll start on GitHub for this because it has some pretty good examples. But in addition, oh, there's the API documentation, so we'll live there. So I have ZAP fired up, and the way that this works is that ZAP offers a REST API locally. That's basically what's going on. And so all the Python module is doing is it's making calls locally to that API. So if I have ZAP open, I should in theory be able to get at it. So I'm just going to start in IPython to play with it first, and then we'll start thinking about the things that we can do to automate. So the first thing I'm going to do is import ZAP v2. Where did my music go? Oh, I turned it down. That was on me. Much better. Kind of on a vaporwave thing right now. Okay. So if I want to make a new instance of the API wrapper. So that's going to be ZAP v2 dot, and here's one of the reasons I love interactive Python, right? Rather than the straight up Python interpreter, is because I have some autocomplete hints. So I can explore this a little bit, and ZAP v2 is the constructor. Now, ZAP v2 requires an API key. If I try to make it empty like this, oh, we have incoming. What's up, the developer and friends? So this won't really work so well because I didn't provide the API key. But if I... Oh, 4 hours. Yeesh. Go for a walk or something. Do some squats or push-ups. So if I try to do... Praximus, thanks so much for the follow. If I try to do anything with this, like URL open, well, I'll try to open like it's not going to work because I didn't actually connect to the API. So I'm going to delete the Zap and start that again. But this time, I'm going to give it the API key. Where does the API key? The API key is local to your instance of Zap, and you can change it. You can make it whatever you want, but you're going to see it here in Zap in the settings, in this tiny little gray gear here. And you're going to find an API section. There's your API key. So you can set that to an environment variable or whatever you want to do, but I'm going to just paste that in there. And then let's try that same thing again, see if I can... Oh no! Connection refused. Well, that sucks. Cannot connect to proxy. Oh, wait a minute. No, this is running on localhost. Let me confirm that I can get to it. Let me get out of... Whoops. Let me get out of the IPython for a second. And let's just curl... through my proxy. 8080? 8080. Well, that sucks. Let's see if this is actually running. Local proxies. It's on 8080. Huh. I wonder if I am going to have to go into full Linux for this. This should have played ball, though. Connection refused. I'm wondering if my local file... if my local firewall is... doing something weird. It's not, though. I mean, I know that it seems like it is. I literally had this working on my work machine earlier today. Yeah. Oh, snap. I wonder if this is a WSL2 thing versus WSL1. Because you are correct, sir. Well, let's try... You know what? Let's see if I can... over in PowerShell. I think Psycho might be right, that it's a different, but I might have routing set up to do it. So this is my proper local. Everything else is, yeah, see, there's WSL. So let me see if I can hit this from in here. No. Interesting. Well, this is going to complicate matters. I mean, not really. I could run it from... because I think I have Python installed here. I tried that with proxy, so we'll try it with 192. So in order for that to work at all, I will definitely have to enable that additional proxy in Zap, because it'll resolve to localhost. We'll try this. So I have to give it. Yeah. Okay. There it is. There it is. There it is. So if I give it, what is this? 151.212. So what are you supposed to be? Yeah. Okay. Now we're cooking with gas. Let's try this. So what is it? 151.209. Huh. Oh, no, that's all good. It's just that it didn't know about the Zap certificate. So if I do curl with K to ignore the SSL... There it is. There it is. That's a really good Zap lesson, actually. If you want to proxy anything that isn't your local host, definitely a good call, Psycho. Make sure that you add the additional local proxies. For example, if you want to pick up all the traffic that is coming off of a remote system, you have to make sure that you add the actual IP, not just localhost, as part of the proxy, so it'll start listening on that IP address for incoming connections. Otherwise, you won't catch it. Okay. Let's try all that again. I'm going to split my window here and CD projects. Nope. Projects, app automation. And notice that I have to create the new virtual environment again. So I just run poetry shell. If I can spell poetry. I was an English major, I should be able to. And then run IPython 3 again. Now I've got an interactive, I've got like a REPL down south, and I can run Vim or whatever up here. So I'll import Zap again. Or Zap v2. And then call it Zap equals Zap v2 dot Zap v2. Is that right? Yeah, Zap v2. And I believe the API key is a named parameter, but let me be sure by looking at the examples, which are somehow not in the examples folder in the document. Yeah, API key is named, not positional. So API key equals, let's go get the Zap API key. Try this one more time. And let me delete this so that we can create it via the API. And then we'll say zap.url open. Oh, weird. Oh, because I bet it's because the source code for the API is expecting it to be on localhost and it isn't. And I wonder if there's a way that we can even redirect that. Because I'm not changing up localhost. That's interesting. Is there a main or whatever? Now I'm just looking at the source code here to see if we can do it. I didn't expect this to be a problem. In self proxies. Oh, okay, perfect. So we can provide it. Thanks for documenting this, Zap. We can provide it a proxies and give it the actual HTTP and HTTPS proxy. I love it when things aren't documented, you just have to, like, read source code to do it. I can, but I don't want to have to. So, that's what? What did we figure out? (209) 8080, and then HTTPS. And you might think, wait, doesn't the HTTPS proxy also have to be HTTP? No, it becomes HTTPS on the other side of the proxy. Okay. Now, we'll provide it the proxies, which is also a named parameter. That worked. So we've got programmatic access to the Zap API, and it's coming up in our display. Now, what can we do with that? Once we have URLs added, the way that Zap works is you have to kind of open a URL first, and then you can do things with it. What kind of things can you do with it? Well, if we look at the API documentation, it gives us some hints. So, for example, we have the spider, right, which allows us to do a passive, not a passive scan, but a spider of the site. My website isn't going to do much because it's a static HTML site, but I know I have permission to test it, so it's good for these purposes. So from here, we would do something like zap.spider. And then there's just a scan. And now this should return an ID number, which is a scan, which is an ID number we can use to reference that scan instance later in our scan. What? Do I also have to send proxies to this? No. Interesting. Man, this is more trouble than I thought it was going to be. All because of WSL. So what I might do if this continues to be a pain is I'll just jump over into my Kali instance and we'll work in there, because I know everything's working in there. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I see no reason not to do that. Let me fire that up. So, while that's firing up, let's chat a little bit about what we want to do here. The idea would be to be able to automate setting up a spider, setting up a passive scan, and then setting up an active scan. And in particular, one of the things that drives me a little crazy is when I'm working with Zap, a lot of times if I just hit active scan, the default scan policy is dumb. And I want to be able to customize it for the thing that I know I'm going after. Similarly, the technologies that you are attacking are contextual, right? In other words, Zap has this concept of a context, which is just a grouping of configurations, and multiple sites can be inside of one context, but the contexts determine the technologies involved, as well as authentication. So if I want to group these up, look, by default, it's going to look for every single thing. I don't need to be testing for IBM D2. I don't need to be testing for SAP, probably. Most of the stuff that I'm doing isn't going to be that. So if I know the technologies, I want to be able to configure this on the fly. Or right from the command line, just say fire this off, use these technologies, and don't worry about these others, because I know for a fact that this is what my target is. And this is going to take a lot, this is going to cut down your scan time significantly. So I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to do it quickly and easily from the command line. All right. Kali box is coming up. And I'll have to reinstall Poetry, but that's not a huge problem. It's all the stuff that I was doing last night on this very stream. Python Poetry. Yeah, there we go. Let's get my terminal back up. One of the things I love about Tmux is, and let me zoom this in so it's easier to read for you. A little bit too big. Is there is a plugin called Tmux Continuum and Tmux Resurrect that allows me to, after a restart, bring back my previous session. So I'm just going to git clone github.com/mttaggart/zap automation. Yep. Cool. And let's install Poetry. Except not for Python, but for Python 3. All good. And I will have to kind of reinitialize some of that stuff, right? But that's okay. That's okay. I don't know why it defaulted to... Yeah, that's gonna be weird. Okay, so the issue here is that it's using Python 2, so that's because the default Python is that, right? Yeah. Python is pointing to Python 2. The way we can fix that, and this might mess up some other stuff in Kali, but for now, it's fine. We're going to sudo unlink user bin Python. And then we're going to sudo lns user bin python to user bin python 3. Did I get the ln wrong? Is it destination target? Yup. Every time. I don't know if you have something like that where it's one of two ways and you're not sure which, and then you guess, and it feels like every time you guess wrong. This is one of those things for me. The ln syntax. Okay. Now it's not complaining anymore. Okay, so poetry, add, what was that? It was... yeah, Python OWASP zap v2.4. That's a little tiny. Let me make that text a little bit bigger. Presumably you're all staring at screens with small text all day. I don't want to make it any harder for you than it has to be. Now, let's try that again. Fire up Zap. Oh, right, it's already initialized. Let's do IPython. Okay. Okay, let me snap this over to one side here. And get our API key. Alrighty. Let's just save that so I don't have to do that again. Okay. Zap equals zap v2 dot zap v2. Give it the API key. And zap dot URL open. Kaboom! Blame Windows. Weird routing issues. Alright, so we're finally able to work with this proxy in a normal way. Let's try to get that spider going. Zap.spider.scan. And we'll give it the same URL. So you can see that the scan kicked off, and you can see that I got this 0 back, which is the scan ID, which I can use to check on the status of the scan, among other things, as it's going. Now, it was really, really fast because there's not a lot going on my site, but if I wanted to scan something a little bit larger, that's how I would do it. Let's active scan. Let's attack this thing. So zap.ascan is what I want to do there, and the same thing, I would give the URL. And this is where you're going to see, it shouldn't take too long, but even as it goes, you'll see the active scan kick off. And let me bring up the indicator. So you can see all sorts of stuff that it's doing, and we can watch this scan progress go. But you can see that there's a lot of stuff that maybe I don't need to care about so much. Like, for example, if I don't have a SOAP API, maybe we skip that one, right? Or I maybe want to be more or less aggressive with my attacks because Zap has levelings for the attacks. We also might want to change the threshold for alerting. like how confident Zap needs to be before it creates an alert, I might want to test that. So for that reason, I want to be able to define my scan policy, or at least choose a predefined scan policy easily from the command line. All right, let me kill this scan because I don't actually need to know what vulnerabilities my site has at the moment. I know that the X-frame options are not set. I'm not too worried about it. And yes, I'm using Google Analytics because I'm a monster. Okay, let's start writing the script here. So let's vim zap automation.py. And what color scheme am I rocking? Nah, let's try Dracula. Much better. Okay, so we're going to import zap v2. And we're also going to import argparse. Why are we doing that? Because yeah, well, I want to know how many people visit my site. I know there's an open, I just saw there's a like a cool open source analytics tool that can replace Google Analytics. I will eventually get there. As you can tell by how few posts I have recently, or at all since I moved my site. It's not like my primary concern. But, oh, we're going to docs.python.org. And we're going to go to argparse. If you haven't used argparse, it's amazing, and I think I was kind of irrationally intimidated by it before I started using it, because it seems like there's a lot going on. But basically, what we can do with argparse is very easily create parsable command line options for your tool in a way that isn't just like slicing through sys.argv. So I'm a big fan. To do that, we start with just creating a parser. Just like that, argument parser. And we'll give it a description. By the way, in case you're curious what I'm using for Vim to get my auto-completion going, it's the vimawesome.com. I'm using Vimplug as my plugin manager, and it's... yeah, I knew it was going to be at the top. uCompleteMe is the completion engine that I'm using. Very easy to install with Vimplug. Could I use VS Code? Yes, but that's not as fun. So we're going to give it a description. For OWASP ZA proxy. Okay. And then we add some arguments. So when we think about what kind of arguments we want to add, what are the things we're going to need? Well, we know we're going to need the API key. So let's just like right off the bat get that one going. And yeah, parser dot add argument. And this is going to look a little weird because I'm going to line break it for clarity. Good sentence, Taggart. This is going to look weird for clarity. But it's going to be... we give it... You can give it the single... Actually, I want to give it the K, because help comes in anyway. And API key. And then we have to give it a destination, which is inside of the args dictionary that we will eventually develop. we have to give it a key value, so, or a key that we want to name it. So we're going to call it API key. And we're also going to say action equals store, which means we save it. There are a couple other actions that argparse can use, like store true if it's a default. And this one is required, so we're going to say required equals true, so it won't run without it. And then finally, we can give it a help, which is just saying OWASP zap API key. So that's our first argument. And if we want to see it, if we want to see this in action, let's let me split this here a little bit and head over to let me write this out and then go into documents, zap automation, and fire up my poetry shell because I want to get those dependencies, right? And then if I do Python 3 zap automation -h. Cool. Oh, right, because I need to parse the args. Args equals parser dot parse args. And now you can see that I didn't tell it to do that, but it developed the help for me, right? Right away. And it tells me since I didn't provide the right stuff, it's giving me the usage as well as the full hints. So we'll add some other arguments here. Parser.add argument. I'm going to say, usually when I would want to do this, it would be a list of targets, right? If I'm doing recon or something like that. So I'm going to say that it's an input file. So we'll say -I for input. And then input file. And we're going to say that this is, for now, is required. We might come up with a better scheme later to say if it's not there, then we'll do like a different target. But for now, it's required. The action is the store. Oh, I forgot to do the destination, didn't I? Destination equals input file. Required true, action store. I know they're in different orders. If that's going to bother you, I apologize. Better? It was going to bother me. And then help, right? Target URLs, maybe. Yeah. Nice and helpful. And then we can start doing our actual stuff. Right, where we say something like zap equals, and we could, if we wanted to, we could do this in a main function, which might be a little bit cleaner. And in fact, we'll take the arg parser and put it in there. And then we'll do that Python thing at the end. If name equals main. So I forgot a comma. Okay, so that's still working, even though we've refactored it a little bit. parser.parse args. So now that we've got the args, we're going to say targets equals, and oh no, just kidding, with open args.input file. And remember, we have a guarantee that this thing is there because we made it required. Don't worry. Everything's fine. See? Spaces. Everything's fine. With args. Args file. F. Nope, that's wrong. We're going to do targets equals, we're going to do a list comprehension here. So it's going to be L dot, is it strip or trim? This is another one where strip, I think. Yeah. So what we're doing there in this list comprehension, right, is we're making a list out of, we're getting the lines out of whatever file we've been given, and then for each one of them, we're going to get the contents of the line, like it's one URL per line, but because I don't want that new line on the end of there throwing a wrench in the works, I'm calling strip on that string to get just the line without the line break. And then let's let me echo the targets.txt. I'll send that there so we can use it. And dang it, I'm gonna need to get the API key again. I'm gonna set that as a variable. If that looks weird, it's because it's fish, not bash. Set API key and then so set environment variable value, not export or anything. Works the same way though. So Python 3 Zap automation, we'll give it the K and we'll give it API key. And then we'll give it the input file of targets.txt, and I should just get the targets back, which I do. So far, so good. All right. Now that we have the, let's comment this a little bit. Load targets. Now that I have my targets, let's go ahead and initialize the proxy. So that's going to be zap equals zap v2 dot zap v2, and we're going to say API key equals, and we have that in args, right? API key when that's required, so we know that we have it. Okay. And then, since we're writing this to work with multiple targets, right, one at a time, but multiple targets. We're going to write this inside of a for loop. Right, for t in targets. We're going to say zap dot URL open t, and let's do just that much for now. See how we do. I'm going to add another target. I need to go get it. And it's the one that OWASP wants us to use. The juice shop. If you haven't played with the juice shop, I highly recommend it. All right, let's run this again, and what we should see in Zap is, let's get rid of all this, and in fact, let's start a new session. That should actually be the first thing that we do. I shouldn't even have to do that manually. Zap dot session dot create new session? Something weird like that. No? I swear there's a new session in here somewhere. Guess not. Is it zap.core? Yep, zap.core, new session. The design of this API is, well, it's not my favorite, but, you know, you make it work. So now that we have URL opened going for each target and the new session, what should happen here is you'll see everything kind of disappear from the Zap interface, and then the sites will come back. And sure enough, they do. So far, so good. Now, we'll start with a spider for each one. And we're going to give it T. Now, we're not doing context yet, but we, you know, should. But for now, we're just going to do a dumb spider. And we're going to save the spider ID, which is what gets returned from that scan call. And you'll see why. Oh, I need, for this next part, I'm going to need time. Or sleep, anyway. because otherwise it's going to get weird. Oh, what is it? It's not option. Scans. Nope, that just returns the list. Status, I believe, and we give it the scan ID. There we go. Spider ID. Is less than 100 because it's just a percentage. We're gonna print out the target, and then we'll say whatever the status is. Okay. And then once that is finished, we'll print. Now I have some plans on making this a little bit prettier, but for now that'll work. Ooh. Let's go check the documentation for exactly what we're getting back from that. Spider. Come on. Click, dang it. Spider. Spider view status. Scan ID. Thank you so much for that absolutely clear explanation of what it is. Well, we get a string anyway. So let's print it out anyway. Let's just do it the once. Let's see what happens. Yeah, okay. So I just need to convert it to an int. No trouble there. Now you can see why we wanted to do the sleep, because that's insane. There's no reason to do it that often, so we're going to do sleep for, you know, like 3 seconds maybe. That'll clean that up just a little bit. Now let's take a look at what's going on over here. So obviously this was working, right? We got the spider going for both of these sites, and then we'll have to do an active scan for each site, which will be something very similar. That's a scan. And scan works very similarly. And then while int, same thing, zap.ascan dot status active ID. I'll just copy these 2 lines here. And okay, so now we've got the active and spider scans running. We're not worried about the passive scans so much. That's something to think about though, because Zap will kind of delay read of pages and then later score them. If we care about waiting for those, we can do it, but for now, we'll leave it alone. And active scan. This is the part where it's starting to be like, I don't know if I need to be doing all... The active scan takes a long time if it's not properly configured. So, how can I make this better? By the way, if I stop this in the UI, the script doesn't die. Watch this. It'd be like, okay, whatever, I'll go on to the next one. So it still works. And this active scan is going to be ridiculous, right? It's actually not taking as long as it should. Already at 34%. The juice shop is, it's pretty dirty. It should find something. Oh, except that, and this is something to keep in mind when you're working with Zap. The reason why, even though this thing is disgusting, but it's not alerting at all in Zap, is because this application is... Get out of here. This application is built in Angular. And that means that the default spider doesn't know what to do with it. Meaning a lot of the stuff, that's why the spider was so fast. The default active scan doesn't know what to do with it because it wasn't actually rendering. To make that happen, do we even have the Ajax scan as an option in here? Yes. Using Ajax Spider. Oh, interesting. The scan API starts the Ajax Spider based on a given URL, similar to the traditional Spider. Ajax Spider can be also limited to context or scope. The parameter context name can be used to blah, 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 blah. But how do I actually do it? Do we have to provide anything else to it, or did the Ajax spider kick off? I don't think it did. Because I'm only seeing... Ajax spider gives me a little red spider rather than the black spider here. Better. Yeah, so if I have Ajax spider, right, I should be able to see more stuff. I'm curious why that didn't kick off. I'm gonna check the source code. Do I have it? Just go through here because I know it's source Zap v2. Hey, it is there. Interesting. So is there a zap dot Ajax spider? There it is. Look at that. So we have to do a whole other one of these. With Ajax spider. And let's just make sure. I feel like there should be an additional set of... Nope. Pretty much the same deal. We'll call that the Ajax ID. Because of my wife's work, my house is full of Greek and Roman mythological references, so it's always weird to me that there's Ajax but no Achilles. Call that Ajax spider. Right? I realized I could have done a good find and replace on this. I don't know, got lazy. Nope, that's wrong. Okay. Let's try this out. Uh-oh. Oh, oops. Oh, interesting. Ajax Spider works a little bit differently, looks like. Of course. Yes, this component is optional. I know, but it's installed. The problem is... Okay. I thought maybe there'd be some sort of configuration for which web scan to run, but it's definitely not. Let's see if... it tells us what our status might be. Nope, definitely doesn't. Alright. Let's just comment out the status loop on that one for the moment to see if even the Ajax Spider works at all. I have a funny feeling it's not. Yeah, look at that. It went right to the active scan. It didn't even bother with the active spider, or the Ajax Spider, even though I asked it to. And for the record, I can make it work if I go and do at Ajax Spider, right, and I do, Firefox headless, or HTML unit is usually what I use. See, it works. It's not going to do anything particularly special, but it'll work. And if I try it on... let me kill the active scan here. If I run it on the... oh, wild! Look at that! I can't do an Ajax Spider on it. Is that because this Ajax Spider is running already? Yeah. Only one Ajax Spider can be running at a time. Makes sense. Now let's see what happens when I start running this. I should get a lot more stuff back. See? stuff starts coming back with the red because it's rendering the JavaScript right into HTML. You can see all this new stuff starts coming back all of a sudden. Right, it's recognizing these calls to like get admin, all this good stuff. It's really interesting that that didn't work out. Well, we'll leave that to explore, but we know that we've got the active and we've got the close the Are you freaking out at the alerts that we found or the endpoints? Because there's a bunch of good, there's literally juicy stuff in here, including the challenge scoreboard. That I don't think we're supposed to see, but it's what happens when you run this against it. But yeah. Now, one other thing that I wanted to do is the ability to specify the technologies that I cared about. And so let's take a look at the in order to do that, I have to define a context. And you see the default context is what it is, but I haven't added any of my sites to that context. So in order to do that, I would have to either like right click and include in context, which actually adds the thing to a scope. But in addition, here inside that context, I can set up the technologies that I care about. So if I were to do this from the command line, the way that I'm doing it right now, I would maybe have to set it up so that all the sites that I was scanning were in the same context. That might not be the best if they're different technologies. So I might think about other ways in which I could do that. But including, you know, I could imagine something like even a template CSV. Not that I love spreadsheets, but where I can set up each site with the technologies that I care about for each one and just tell it to ingest that. That might be something kind of cool to do. But for now, we're going to set up a single context and define the technologies. So let's start that. Let me kill all of this. And let's, ooh, don't want to be there. Up here, let's, we're going to make a new context right after we open the URL. Well, this will do a different context for each one, which actually may not be the worst. New context. Hey, Tater. We are automating web app scanning with the Zap API, is what's up. So we're going to make a new context. The context name can just be the the URL. And then we can do zap.context dot include in context, which takes two arguments. One of them is the context name, which is going to be the URL, and the second is the regular expression that the context uses to match. Now, I was a little worried that I was going to have to do some like weird stuff to translate a URL into a real regular expression, right? Escaping the forward slashes, stuff like that. Turns out Zap doesn't care, and it'll take it anyway. So we can just use T as the second argument as well. Now, what's cool about this is I can use the context to define the technologies that I care about. So let's say, for example, that I care just about Tater. Did I put anything like this on GitHub? It'll be pushed right after this stream, my man. Actually, I don't know if you're a man. But, yeah. Absolutely. MIT license, so have at it. Open source for life. It actually kills me a little bit inside that I have to use Windows for streaming. Every other computer that I have is a Linux machine. But it just doesn't work nearly as well for this stuff. And also, frankly, for the security stuff, you have to be in the Windows world. There's just too much going on there. So the technologies are kind of interesting. The way that the Zap API does the technologies is, you can see how they're listed here, and I can use include technologies, but the way that they're defined is with a dotted namespace, so it's like db.mongodb or language.javascript. So if I give it a comma-separated list, a single string that's a comma-separated list of those technologies, then it'll include just those in the context. So the first thing I'll do is create my Python list. We'll make this a command line parameter in a second, but just to demo it, we'll say it'll be db.mysql, and there's no reason to make this a list and then join it because we're just demoing it. So db.mysql, and then say like language.javascript, and we'll do os.linux, and we'll say zap.context exclude all context technologies. So we're clearing the list first with the context name. It doesn't have an ID for the context, weirdly. It uses the context name for this. And then we do this, we kind of re-add the stuff that we want. Zap.context that included technology list. And then, or nope. Include context technologies, that's it. Include context technologies, and then we give it the text. That should do it. So let's go ahead and fire this up, and what should happen is you'll see contexts get created as well as the sites. All right, so there's our first context. And if we check this out, you should see our technologies. Yep, there's MySQL and just JavaScript and just Linux. So those are the three technologies we chose, and those got added. So my scan is going to go faster because I'm not concerning myself with the technologies that I know for sure are not involved. That's the basic idea. All right. Let me just kill this because I don't need it to keep running. So how would we do this then for our command line arguments? Well, let's go up to our parser again, and let's add a new argument. So here we're going to say or maybe tech list is a better way of saying it. And I feel like the easiest way to do it is just to ask for a comma-separated string and then deal with it, because then I don't have to parse it into a list or anything. So we'll just do that. It's not required. So in this case, we'll say and then because we're not requiring it, we have to account for it when we're doing the scan, when we're creating our context. So down here, we'll say if args.technologies. So if we don't include it, it'll just make the context as normal. However, if we do include it, it will specifically include just the technologies that we want to scan. Okay. Now, coming up on 90 minutes here. Actually, we're past 90 minutes for this, but we're coming up on the half hour. So the last thing I want to do, and then we'll get out of here for tonight, is it's cool to have the data, and I definitely want to have it in my export. However, if I'm doing mass reporting, maybe I want to export it. So to do that, I'm going to do the real cheap export report version of this. To make it real easy, I'm going to import OS for the moment. And we're going to add a new parser argument. And this one's going to be output directory. And this is going to be the folder in which we're going to export our HTML reports. We're just going to do the easy export from Zap. There are other exports you can do, but this is the easiest. Okay. So if we give it the output directory, then yeah, let's just axe the Ajax spider for now. And then here we go. We'll say if args dot, dang it, what I call it? Output, that should be an underscore. Args dot output dir. Then we're going to say zap dot, is it, yeah, it's just export report, believe it or not. and generate. So the absolute path is going to be I'm going to say args for the moment, args.output dir, and then the file extension is HTML. Now, let me go check the thing for export report, because I think there's something funny about... No. Export report is not what I want. HTML report. There it is. Does that just generate the report? Let's go look at core and see what's up here. Yeah. Little bit funky though, because... Okay, so we'll say... Actually, I don't even need to save it as anything, right? Just say f.write. Hey Glads, thanks so much for the follow. The trick here is that if I'm iterating through each of my targets and I'm not getting rid of them, then the HTML reports are going to get successively larger because I can't specify which thing I'm reporting on. That blows. I can see where this is going, and where it goes is I am going to end up writing the thing where it's like, because yeah, already I can see what's happening. I'm gonna end up doing like zap dot alert dot alerts, right? I'm gonna go get all of them, and then I'm gonna write a whole thing to graph this with a visualization tool. I can absolutely see myself doing that. I've been looking for an excuse to play with this. It's data pane. And basically it is a way to programmatically... It's like freemium, there's an open source version, don't freak out with the create account thing. There is an open source part of this somewhere? There it is. Thanks, GitHub link. Yeah. And you can use Altair or Pandas, and I think I can use Plotly too. And so you can create your graph out of whatever, and then you can produce PDFs straight out of it. I've been really thinking about using this to generate for my day job, to generate leadership reports out of APIs. So rather than having to use. I hate most of the dashboards for most of the tools that exist, not just the ones that we haven't worked with, like that exist. Just because, give me the data, I want to be able to use it my way. And this is a way to do that. If there's an API that you can hook into, then you can generate the reports that you need. For example, one thing I've been playing a lot with is getting data from Shodan and generating kind of like a month-to-month report of vulnerabilities reported by Shodan or SSL certificates that have been expired, things like that. Anyway, data pane. But for now, let's just do the lazy version and get this HTML report. And we're also gonna check to see that the output dir even exists. I always forget what this is. Python OS dir exists. What is this? Yeah. Oh, os.path.isdir, right? So actually, let's negate that. If not, then we're going to do os.mkdir. Okay. Since I'm supposed to be teaching on these, quick computer science question. What easy win do I have in this structure right now that I could use to improve performance? What easy fix do I have to reduce my computational load? Shy chat tonight. I am looking up args output dir 4 times. That is dumb. Don't make your program look that up 4 times. Save it in a variable. I'm using a little bit of memory to save 4 lookups in the args dictionary. That's, you want to make that exchange for memory over compute when you can. Not always, but definitely a good call in this case. All right, let's run this one more time. And I'm going to give it the output for results, which doesn't exist. So it should make it. I don't really care about the extra scan, so I'm just going to stop this. So it did make it. Oh, but what did I do that was stupid? I forgot to do here we're going to do this. File name equals t.replace Ropless replace I know this isn't going to work for everything, but for now it'll be fine. There we go. Now we've got an actual file name. Oh, wait, just kidding. Gonna remove results first, and then we'll try this again. Don't care about the active scan. Keep going. It would be good if I could write code at all. Okay, it moved on to juice shops, so let's go see if... Stop. So funny that I have to open the file browser via the command line. Hey, look at this. So we're automating the export of the report. Now, this isn't the cleanest report in the universe, and it's not what you'd submit by itself for a pen test by any means, but it's a great, quick read to see, oh, here's what my summary looks like, and here's the evidence. So if I wanted to check to see if something was going on, or I needed to submit this to somebody for whatever purpose, I have an automated way to export a bunch of stuff. All right. I think that's going to do it for tonight. And yes, I will be putting this up on GitHub so that we can continue to play with it. You can fork it, do whatever you want with it. But I think that's it for tonight. So thanks everybody for hanging out. Hope you had a good time. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other. And I am going to actually be off this Saturday, taking a little bit of vacation. So I will be back again on Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific, with some more Red Team stuff. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your week.